Welcome back. Our guest today is a very familiar face and name in a brand new role. Please welcome Tim Cahill, now president of the South Shore Chamber of Commerce. Welcome, Tim.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you. It's nice to be back in Quincy.
Yes.
During the day. I'm here at nights. And,
Exactly.
I hope I'm already thinking I'm going to mess it up probably once or twice and say Quincy instead of South Shore.
Probably.
But, it's what happens. I mean, I was there in Quincy for 6.5 years.
Yeah.
I've been at the South Shore Chamber now for 3 months.
When did you find out that that was going to be your new role?
Not officially till about the week before Christmas.
Oh, really?
So it was a quick turnaround.
Yeah.
Not ideal, but you know, change is good.
Was it something you've been working on? Is something you were?
Well, it's something I was interested in.
You were?
It was interested in, but the process really was playing out during the holidays between Thanksgiving and Christmas. So not ideal, but
Here we
was
are.
it my call?
Yeah. Why did it interest you?
I love the chamber business model,
yeah.
you know, helping businesses, trying to bring people together and accomplishing things that the private sector and government really things that fall through the cracks oftentimes. You know, they're businesses that do well but can do better. So it's almost like having a child in school that's good, does what he's supposed to do, or she what's supposed to do. You often get credit, you know, you get attention if you're a superstar, you get attention if you're, you know, underachieving.
Need some help,
and
yeah.
those folks in the middle just go.
Okay.
And I think, in a sense, that's what we're there for the business community, to bring the bigger and the smaller ones together. And South Shore just is a bigger footprint. And I love challenges, so even at this stage of my life, it's fun to do new things in new territories. Obviously, Quincy's part of the South Shore.
South Shore Chamber has its roots in Quincy.
Absolutely.
It started over in the mansion on Miller Style Road, right?
125 years ago.
Yeah.
We'll be celebrating 125th anniversary next year.
Wow, okay.
Started in Quincy by one of the Adamses, believe it or not, a businessman of the Adams family. It's a Quincy Board of Trade, and then it grew as the South Shore grew, and it became the Quincy South Shore Chamber at one point, and then eventually, I think it was in the 60s, Quincy got dropped from the name. Became the South Shore Chamber, very, very successful. And then in 2009, Quincy decided to set up its own chamber, which worked out well for me.
Yes, yeah.
And I think for the businesses, I mean, as Quincy has grown, I think it deserves its own chamber, much like Plymouth down south.
Yes. Yeah.
But the territory starts at the Neponset River and goes down to the canal.
Is that right?
So it includes 25 communities. So I can still work with Quincy businesses if they're part of our chamber, if they want to be part of our chamber.
I would think there are dual memberships, right?
There are.
Yeah, businesses in both Quincy and South Shore.
We've got a number of affiliate chambers like Weymouth and Braintree and Marshfield, Hanover, that are part of our chamber but have their own sort of volunteer boards and volunteer officials and stuff. So that's a great model. And like I said, the challenge is bigger.
How many in the South Shore Chamber? How many members?
We have I think about 1,200.
1,200, okay. So it's more than double the Quincy.
Yeah, it's more than double. And many of those are part of just the chamber, and some are part of, have dual memberships as part of both.
Sure.
But it's the territory that really interests me because the South Shore is growing. There's a lot of needs on the South Shore, and trying to stitch together communities from Plymouth to Quincy is a challenge that I've kind of jumped into wholeheartedly and believe in.
Quincy College has done it pretty successfully for a while now, right?
Quincy College has done it successfully. We've got Bridgewater State University
Another
down
good
there.
example,
That's not technically in the district, but many of its students come from the district.
Certainly, yeah.
Its teachers and its faculty come from the district. So it's exciting. You know, we've got 3 hospitals in the region. Milton Hospital, Quincy will be included in that soon.
Right.
Plymouth Hospital, which is also part of the Deaconess, Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center.
Right.
And then you've got South Shore Hospital, which is really affiliated with Mass General.
Right.
In the middle. And healthcare is, I think, one of the driving economic forces on the South Shore.
For sure.
As these Boston hospitals are migrating to where people are. There's about 700,000 people in the South Shore region, from the coast all the way up into Canton and Randolph. So it's just a nice challenge.
Yeah.
It's similar to what I've been doing, but on a larger scale. with bigger staff, and I think we can, make a difference. If I can make a difference on the region, similar to what I was able to do and what we were able to do in Quincy, I'd be thrilled with it because we have to grow.
What are some of the major challenges that you see facing businesses in the South Shore?
Growth is a challenge. Workforce is a challenge,
Okay.
which is really almost universal. It's getting the qualified staffers and teammates and employees that are needed in these industries on the South Shore.
Specific areas, Jim? Specific
Healthcare,
industries?
the big one.
Healthcare is the big one.
Healthcare's the big
Okay.
one, and it's a funny dynamic, when we've got all these great universities in Boston and on the South Shore. And when you graduate from one of these great universities or colleges, your number one desire is to stay in the city, for the most part.
Okay.
I want to stay in the city. I want to still, it's exciting. I'm young. I want to do things. I want to go to restaurants. I want to go to bars.
And they become it's their home. They become accustomed to it.
And I
right?
want to have a close commute
Yeah.
to work.
Yeah.
So the challenge for us is getting those people, and as they get a little bit older, but are still considered young professionals, get them to come to the South Shore and find not just their place to live, but a place to work and a place to have fun.
Yes.
And I think that's what Quincy has done over the last decade is become a place where you can live and you can work and you can go out to eat at night
Right.
and feel like you're in an urban environment,
Yes,
or you have
yeah.
choices. It doesn't have to be an urban environment, but
Well-
you have choices, and it matches. It combines history with the past and the future. And the South Shore is, the only place, I think the only place, at least the only place in the county, in the region that came before Quincy was Plymouth, and they're the bookends of the
Yeah.
region.
Of course, Quincy has the benefit of being close to Boston on the Red Line.
Close.
So there is that.
Absolutely. But we
what
do
about,
have
like Rockland,
But we do have the Teague runs down to Plymouth and Kingston.
Yeah.
The commuter
On the
rail.
commuter
We've
rail,
got the
yeah.
boat in Hingham,
True,
which is a really solid source of transportation.
Mm-hmm.
So the option, I guess, is to bring people south and to create a community. So if they travel, if they still have to travel into Boston, make sure that that's doable. So
Right,
one of the
right.
early things that we're working on is bringing the general manager of the MBTA, Phil Eng,
Yep.
to a South Shore Chamber of Commerce breakfast
Okay.
to speak about the transportation
Certainly.
and how he intends to turn the T around and get it back to a really, truly functioning mass transit authority.
Yeah, well, there's been massive improvements already.
There
for
have
sure,
been,
yeah.
and that's
There's more to
and
go.
he's done a great job of that,
Yeah.
but the message still has to get out.
Yeah.
What he's done and what there is to do, and I think one of the key sources of mode of transportation that is underutilized in the South Shore is water.
Mm-hmm.
We have a boat in Hingham. We will have a full-scale boat in Quincy. a
Looks
number
that
of
way,
boats in
yeah.
Quincy. And there are places all along between Plymouth and Quincy where you can
Hop on anywhere,
theoretically
right?
at least
Yeah.
add a boat. The cost is obviously in the ship.
Yeah.
The transportation, but you're not spending money upgrading the water because it exists.
Right.
It's got to work, but the population can dictate it. It is, and it's a way people enjoy traveling. And when you go to coastal communities in Seattle and Vancouver, it's boat
Oh, it's
travel.
routine.
It's
It's-
routine,
yeah. Yeah.
and it can probably, you can avoid some of the slowdowns you get with an old track system, and having to sort of go in and out and make sure that the lines run. So people need to get to work in a reasonable amount of time.
Right.
That's one thing that COVID kind of showed people is the time they spend commuting is time lost with their family.
Yes.
Time lost at work. But they're all going back to work, and we want them to go back to work. So, but I'm excited too. We've got a great group of businesses, and there's so much opportunity. I'm not constricted by geography like kind of I was in Quincy.
Okay.
Where Quincy Chamber was 90% Quincy.
Certainly, yeah.
And we did get some business from outside, but I wasn't recruiting outside of Quincy. Now
Sure, I
can
know
recruit.
some Milton businesses to
Yeah,
become
and we had a
active.
partnership with them.
Yeah.
The partnership model is great because for smaller businesses that really aren't regional, that might be a good fit for them. So Braintree, Weymouth, Marshfield. For those businesses that need regional support, like hospitals, like healthcare institutions, like manufacturers, I think we can play a role, and I'm excited about it because it's different. Instead of dealing with, one sort of elected body, in one person, which is Mayor Koch, who was great to us in Quincy and great to the chamber. Now I get to work with 25 different
Boards of selectmen,
Boards of
town
selectmen.
managers, yeah.
Be careful what you wish for, because that's a challenge.
Right.
We only have 3 mayors in the region, Mayor Koch, Mayor Joyce, and Mayor Headland. Everyone else is elected by the board and selectmen and town meeting. And it's a tough model, but we're going to make it work. The one thing that I see that's disturbing to me is that there are, I think, a half dozen overrides planned in the spring this year in the towns of the South Shore because they're not generating enough revenue to pay for their services. And part of that is because there's a reluctance on the part of the town sometimes to accept commercial businesses.
I see.
Because of, and housing, there's
I was going to bring up the cost of housing and how much of a factor that plays.
It's a challenge.
Yeah.
It's a challenge. It's been a challenge.
Yeah.
Quincy's addressed it tremendously. If we can get some of that going south, some more of that going south, and some. Weymouth has grown. Pembroke is adding housing. Plymouth has added tens of thousands
Is that right?
of houses, mostly houses because they've got the land down there.
Yeah.
But I think a mixture of multifamily and single family is the right model. It just depends on what the town wants. So if you build it, I think they will come. If you create it, people will come,
Yeah.
and then you got to find places for them to live that is affordable and close enough to where they're working. So what's fun for me is just sort of rediscovering the South Shore. I mean, I've been here my whole life.
sure,
but
yeah.
when you spend so much of your time in one community, you just don't get out. And when you do go south, you're often going to the Cape. And
You
there's
just cruise right
things
through,
to
right?
do at every single exit,
Yeah.
and places to go, and businesses, all up and down the South Shore. And I'm discovering them, and I want to bring that message to the masses.
So what do you think needs to come first in terms of growth? Does it need to be housing first and then industry, or industry
Both.
first?
I think it's both. The jobs have to be there, and the housing has to sort of meet the needs.
Okay.
And they don't have to necessarily be in the same place,
Right.
because you can be outside the district in Halifax or in Bridgewater. And if you're working in Hanson, if your business is in Hanson, or if it's in Hanover, you can get there in 20 minutes.
Oh, sure.
Maybe a half hour.
Okay.
And it's a reasonable commute. And I think people understand that they're not going to be lucky like I was and be 5 minutes from
I was
work.
going to say, your commute has changed a lot. Yeah.
But it isn't that bad. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm 15 minutes from
Well, you have
work.
the reverse commute.
I got the
so,
reverse
yeah.
commute, as would anyone else that lives on the South Shore if
Right.
they're working in this. That's the beauty of
That's
it.
true.
If you're
Yeah.
looking at places to locate, and we're looking to get businesses to locate as well as families to
Right.
locate and people.
Yes.
That reverse commute is a godsend, and it really does work.
Yeah.
We just, I think the model on a regional chamber is you want to create an environment where people can live and work and recreate.
So
you
do you
know?
see like the rebirth of the industrial park coming back? or-
Well, I don't think it's a rebirth, but filling those industrial parks.
see.
There's
Okay.
quite a few of them on the South Shore.
Is that
So
right?
you're not going to have a 15-story or 10-story building on the South Shore, but you go out because you can,
Yep.
horizontally rather than vertically. And they're usually in pockets where they're all accepted. They're not one-offs mainly in people's backyards or next to a subdivision,
Right,
a
right,
home
right.
subdivision.
Okay.
So there's plenty of land. It's how you use it. And to me, it's convincing people that the mix of land, maybe not as dramatic as we've seen in Quincy,
Yeah.
but whatever fits the community, but the mix of commercial and residential is the key, because that way the businesses and the homeowners share the tax burden. And you're not going back to the voters every year
Right.
to fund your school system. And if those systems, school systems, public safety, are not funded, people won't stay.
Yeah. But that's quality of life issue, right?
That's
Yeah.
what it comes down to. So it all fits together.
Yeah.
And again, that's one of the reasons I love this business, is because it combines the business with the political. Politicians generally focus on the political. Business people focus on the business.
Yep.
And I'm in the middle trying to get them to meet
Right.
halfway, or figure out how to bring them together to provide, solutions to both sides.
Yeah. So does that mean maybe changes in zoning regulations?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, okay.
Absolutely. And I think in many ways it's publicity and encouragement. Like, I've been there for 3 months. I've seen more in 3 months than I've probably seen in the last 20 years.
Really?
As far as new and interesting places, because I am out there now,
Yeah.
in the region.
What's kind of surprised you the most, Tim?
Well, how many business sort of areas there are. I go to Rockland every day. Rockland's right off of 228. You go left, you're in Norwell, and then there's Assinippie Park. You go right, you're in Rockland. You go down the street half a mile, you're in Hingham.
Okay.
And you turn right, you're in Weymouth. And there's all these businesses and these business communities. Again, small, not quite, Crown Colony type office
Certainly.
parks, but smaller versions of those, which fit into the community.
Right.
A lot of
Because these are
businesses.
towns of what, 30, 40,000 people, right?
Exactly,
Yeah, okay.
exactly. And it all adds up. And if you look at it sort of as one region, it makes sense. Sometimes you look at it as each individual town. There's more residential in one town, say in Duxbury and in Situate, than there is in Marshfield. Marshfield has more business,
They have
commercial
139
space.
that runs right through it, right?
Exactly,
Yeah, okay.
exactly. So and again, some of that is driven by whether or not the elected body is open
Yes.
to business. And that's part of my job, is to meet with the elected officials, state reps, local officials, state leaders, and find out, what's possible.
Sure.
Not try to force something that's not possible.
Yep,
I mean,
yep.
this Communities Act
a balancing act, right?
is
Yeah.
a tough sell in
Yeah.
some of these communities, and I understand why. That's why people move down there. They don't want what we have here in Quincy.
They don't want a State Street in their
They
backyard.
don't. Yeah, they don't want
Yeah.
too much
Right.
of what we have, but they need some of it, and that's where hopefully I can come in and our team can come in, is convince them what they should get and how that mix has to stay mixed. I mean, it's the old argument about the South Shore Plaza. It was a mainstay. It was the place to go when I was growing up, when you were growing up, when it was
Oh,
the
yeah.
place to shop.
Oh, it was an outdoor mall at that point.
I remember
Yeah.
that. I remember. We're dating ourselves.
I know.
We remember that.
I don't care.
But even so, it was the place to go to shop and to socialize.
For sure.
And it's lost a little of that.
Well, malls in general, right, have.
And then you have a place like Derby Street.
Yeah.
And now
Just
Hanover
thriving.
Crossing,
Yeah.
which has replaced the old Hanover Mall.
Right.
You have to meet people where they are and give them what they're looking for. And one of the things that the mayor of Braintree is now trying to do is add housing to that mix so that you can sort of build a community there, to give the owners of the mall maybe an incentive to upgrade.
Or at least
Or
stay.
to modernize, or
Yeah.
to stay, like
Yeah.
you said. And the businesses will come and go depending on whether the shoppers are there.
Right.
And we're seeing a lot of business exodus from the South Shore
For
Plaza.
sure, yeah.
So, I mean, it reminds me a lot of what Quincy was in the 80s. I mean, even in the 80s, it was still Shoppers Town.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
For most of us,
Yep.
for those of us who had business.
Yeah, the Bargain Center was still there in the
Bargain
80s, yeah.
Center was there, Sawyer's was still there,
Yep.
Sears was still there.
Yep.
Once it started to die or depopulate,
Yeah.
it just snowballed.
Yeah.
And by the end of the 80s, and I was still in business in the early 90s,
Yeah.
it became really kind of a ghost
Yeah,
town.
it did.
And now it's come back through the efforts of the mayor. See, I just dropped it. You told me about it, you jinxed me, and now mine's out.
That's okay, because we're out of time.
All right, perfect. That was
That's like the
perfect.
cane coming
That was
out.
the mic drop of all time.
Exactly.
Sorry.
Thanks, Tim.
Apologize.